Good evening, my name is Brad Evans. My family has lived in Redlands for about 30 years now. We're proud of our town and have always, almost always been proud of the way our leaders have conducted themselves. Unfortunately, that is not the case when it comes to Coyote Aviation and the way the city is treating Gil Brown and his associates. I first met Gil Brown when our son had him as his 5th grade teacher at Mariposa Elementary here in Redlands. He immediately impressed us with his passion for teaching and the way he treated his students. They were a team, the entire class, and they called themselves retrievers after Gil's love of golden retrievers. I'm a firm believer that honesty and integrity is taught first at home, then is exemplified by the people you meet through life. Our children have been fortunate to have many great teachers. Gil Brown was the best influence we could have ever hoped for to prepare us for middle school and for life in itself. Gil Brown taught his students how to work together, how to treat people with respect, how to be honest in everything you do. He took them flying. He introduced them to astronomy with his telescopes. He taught them the value of hard work. Our family was there at the groundbreaking of Coyote Aviation over 20 years ago. Not because we were pilots or aviators, but because our son wanted to be there to support his teacher. That's the kind of man he is. It is so disappointing to see that our city leaders are trying to do this amazing man. He has performed everything required in his agreement with the city. He was given incorrect information, which he questioned. He was told everything's fine, until it wasn't. The city found they could make much more money by kicking Coyote Aviation out over an error they had made. Does this sound like honesty? Does it sound like integrity? Absolutely not. The city is only as good as its people and its leaders. If the people distrust their leaders, it resonates with the entire community. As you can see by the attendance here tonight, which is pretty good, residents of Redlands have a definite problem with what's happening at Coyote Aviation. If this was your company, would you appreciate being treated like this? I think not. Gil Brown epitomizes the best qualities humanity has to offer. He is one of the many reasons that so many of the children he taught are doing so well in their adult lives. He was a huge influence for our son, who now has a master's degree in computer electrical engineering and works for Raytheon Space and Airborne Systems, which I have no doubt was inspired in some part by this man. I'm asking you as an advisory board to please do the right thing. Advise the city that what is happening is wrong. Let the people of Redlands know that their leaders have integrity. Let Gil Brown and Coyote Aviation continue as they've always been, a good man and an honest business. Thank you.
The board recognizes Terry Tom.
I'm not Terry Tom, I'm Brad Evans, I really am. I was asked, she sent a letter, she's one of her former students, and asked that I read it.
Could you tell us who that was from again, please?
Her name is Terry Tom. Dear Airport Advisory Board, when I was 6 years old, my father moved our family to Redlands in 1977. He chose Redlands, which is a lengthy hour commute to his work, specifically for its excellent public school system. We were not disappointed, and in 1982, I found myself in Mr. Brown's 6th grade class. It might sound a little ridiculous, but it would be the pinnacle and most pivotal year of my academic career. 4 years at UCLA and 4 more years of graduate study can't compete with what we learned from Mr. Brown. 40 years ahead of his time, he taught us to be appreciative of the environment, to look at it with a critical eye at who wrote our history books, and to take care of physical fitness. He taught us to take what we learned in the classroom and see the world through the lens of wonder. But most important, he taught us to be good citizens. Which is why I find it appallingly ironic that I'm having to write this letter. The Redlands that so attracted my parents in the 1970s seems to have disappeared and is now run by an overtly corrupt city council with no investment in or regard for the community. While I'd like to think that this has been an oversight in the handling of Coyote Aviation's lease, the fact this dispute has lingered over 3 years now, in the face of overwhelming solid evidence backing Coyote Aviation's case, just further supports the obvious, that Redlands City Council is morally bankrupt the city's legal branch, obviously in its pocket. What's even more galling is that the city has been anything but covert about this. With all the facts in the open, City Council just continues to insult its constituents by lying to us and rubbing our faces in the fact that the taxpayers mean nothing to them. Don't think for 1 second, by the way, that we'll forget that on election day. The evidence that the city has been angling to outright steal Coyote Aviation all along is shockingly obvious. The botching of the termination lease, reneging on negotiated lease points, removal of Coyote Aviation from the airport supervisor's distribution list, the debacle with Columbia Helicopter is a disgusting violation of the Brown Act. Wow, way to go, Redlands. Way to treat someone who's given so much to this community for over 50 years. Who would ever want to do business in a city with this kind of track record? As word about this continues to spread, who will ever want to invest in Redlands Airport? Please think about the bigger picture here. Think of Redlands' image and how that will impact its future reputation and growth. Is a city that is so corrupt it actually silences its cities by violating the Brown Act somewhere people will want to live? Is a city that steals and destroys private businesses going to attract new investors and encourage growth? If the city succeeds in ousting Coyote Aviation, it will have, and already has had, terrible ramifications for the airport. Please advise council members to do the right thing. It's not too late. Please advise them to stop tarnishing the name of the city we love. Respectfully, Terry Tom, Redlands.
The board recognizes Cindy Gavlin.
Hi, my name is Cindy Gavlin. I'm with the Redlands Airport Association, and I'm here on behalf of Eric Paul, who could not be here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, when the city finished buying the airport from the private owners in 1966, the airport was assigned to Public Works for supervision and development. At the time, there were only 2 buildings on the airport. Public Works was actively looking for investors to develop our airport. Many investors answered the call, and by year 2000, there were 4 leases on the airport with over 130 hangars constructed. Under Public Works leadership there was a friendly, helpful atmosphere between the city and airport leaseholders. If you missed a payment for a deadline, you got a courtesy call. In 2003, the city took the airport away from Public Works and gave it to municipal utilities. Then everything got ugly. Instead of a courtesy call, you will be notified you were in violation of your lease with legal action to follow. In 2005, the city rescinded the lease with Aerodynamics, evicting them and bought their buildings for about 60 cents on the dollar, all over a payment dispute. Aerodynamics never got a courtesy call. Those are now the city hangars. Now Coyote is being given the same treatment. No courtesy call, just a rescinded lease followed by legal action and an eviction notice. You'll notice no new investors have come forward since the city took the airport management away from Public Works. Without private investors, Redlands Airport would be an empty field. The Airport Advisory Board needs to do a better job of protecting the rights of our airport investors. Thank you, Eric Paul, President of the Redlands Hangar Owners Association.
The board recognizes Ted Gavlin.
Good evening, board members. Ted Gavlin, President of the Redlands Airport Association. We're a chapter of the California Pilots Association. It's truly unfortunate that the Coyote Aviation and the city have been engaged in a costly and ugly legal battle for, 2.5 years. I'm sure you all are aware the dispute arose from the city's efforts to terminate Coyote's land lease and evict tenants for allegedly not exercising an option to extend their lease in a timely manner. Coyote fought back to protect their business and investment. Since the dispute started, Mr. Brown has shared some very compelling documentation of facts obtained through a Public Records Act request. This dispute does not appear to be about the city getting a more favorable lease for Coyote. Instead, it appears the lease termination is part of an effort by some city officials to acquire the Coyote Aviation hangar complex. After all, city ownership of the building would generate far more revenue for the city than the Coyote Aviation ground lease. Coyote built and paid for all the improvements on the parcel they leased. They took the financial risk to invest in Redlands Airport in 2000. We're glad they did, along with the other private parties that have built hangars and facilities on the city's property. It's made the airport into what it is today. Back then, city officials welcomed and encouraged private investment at the airport. Why? Because the city has never built any structures on the airport. Even the public lobby was built by a private party. It is used by the city through a lease agreement condition with the building's owner. The current city hangar complex, as was stated earlier, was acquired from a private individual after they got behind on the lease payment. It is the largest revenue producer for the city at the airport. We suspect some city officials would like to own the Coyote complex for the same reason. Our members believe that the city's action against Coyote Aviation has had and will continue to have a detrimental effect on the airport's growth and sustainability. Going forward, it will be difficult, if not impossible, to get anybody to build anything at the airport. The prospect of losing an investment because an aggressive city official is scrutinizing any minor breach of a contract for the sole purpose of acquiring an asset will scare most developers away. We are sure the city has spent a few $100,000 of taxpayer money on this battle. How much have they spent? Well, they're not talking, citing legal concerns because the matter is in litigation. Even though the city received a judgment requiring Coyote to pay the city's legal fees, I bet it won't happen. With legal fees like this, it will probably bankrupt Coyote, and the expenses will get put on the airport enterprise fund, and we'll all have to suffer and pay them. That money could have been used for an aircraft wash rack or God knows how many other needed improvements we need at the airport. The RA supports Coyote for all these reasons. It's important that the same city officials be deterred from taking such actions in the
3
future,
minutes.
and other airport leaseholders that have invested in hangar improvements at the airport. We feel it's appropriate for the city and Coyote to cease the legal wrangling.
Sorry,
Sit
Ted,
down.
I gotta keep us to 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
The board recognizes Carol Brown.
Good evening, Carol Brown, Coyote Aviation. Thank you, Airport Advisory Board, for listening to us. I would like to respond to some of Mayor Pro Tem Berich's remarks at your last month's meeting regarding the dispute between the city and Coyote Aviation. He said, "We didn't get a lot of cooperation. As a matter of fact, quite honestly, this is the first time he's coming and saying, okay, let's make a deal." That was not true. We made many attempts to engage city staff and city council. We researched our phone call records, emails, letters, and found at least 15 attempts to engage with staff, mainly Chris Boatman, and the entire city council from September 7, 2020 through March 2021, before our lease was terminated. Unfortunately, 3 minutes is not enough time to mention each one. We asked, will you allow Coyote to renew? How can we resolve the issue? When might we work to resolve? Might we find a time to meet? I'd really like to meet. Do you have time to talk? Can we renegotiate? Am I supposed to be involved in the city council meeting? Responses were, I need a month or so to review. Council cannot take action at this meeting. It is unlikely that city council will revisit your request until later this year or maybe early next year. We will continue discussion with council in February. There is limited information I can offer, and several requests were never acknowledged. And so we were terminated with never a chance to discuss our lease. After our lease was terminated, Coyote persisted. At least 15 more times, right up to last month, Coyote tried to engage. Mr. Boatman said the council will not renegotiate unless we want to discuss the fate of our improvements. Coyote offered mediation. The city set the parameters. Coyote agreed. The city backed out without explanation. Several times we wrote to council members and staff and received no response. We tried, the city ignored. Last month, in the meeting, Mr. Berich also said, we didn't get a damn one counter offer at the city. There was never any counter made, so we didn't have any other choice but to take the action we did. Also untrue, and we have documented offers. Perhaps it is true, as suggested in your meeting last month, that the city council has not been privy to what is really happening in city offices. I think it's time for council to meet with Coyote to hear from us what staff has not shared with them. And last, Mr. Barrett also said, we're not trying to push anybody out. And yet, here we are. Thank you.
The board recognizes Gil Brown.
Your glasses.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers. International Movie Database describes the film like this. A scientist discovers extraterrestrial aliens are killing humans and replicating them as their own incarnations. He cannot get anyone to believe it. People refuse to consider his evidence, a mistake that ultimately leads to the closing of Redlands Airport. The ending of humanity. I am that scientist, and I manage Coyote Aviation. My belief is that City Council members Denise Davis, Mario Salceda, Jenna Guzman-Lowry, Eddie Tate, and Paul Barrett have intentionally thwarted Coyote Aviation's ability to defend its property and in its land lease dispute with the City of Redlands. According to the Airport Advisory Board members, the group responsible for providing feedback to the Council on Airport Matters, they were told directly not to engage with Coyote Aviation at all. City Council members refuse to ever have a dialogue with Coyote. Their ears are covered, and like the non-believers in the movie, their oblivion will be costly. How I'd hope for a member of City Council that they would be interested in seeing the dispute from our vantage point. However, no matter how many times I tried, no council member would ever talk to us. Was this part of an extraterrestrial plot or simply a city policy? In 2021, I made one of many proposals to City Council to provide facts about Coyote Aviation and answer any questions they might have. Then Mayor Pro Tem Eddie Tejeda was considerate enough to tell me why my offer and all others had been rejected. He responded in part, quote, "To my knowledge, it is not appropriate for City Council members to engage in discussions with any party during negotiations, as it would result in any council member having to recuse himself from those closed session discussions to offer insight, comments, or suggestions." Think about that. He was telling me that the city policy was to prevent insights, comments, and suggestions regarding the fate of a productive and successful small business. Excuse me, but isn't that what thoughtful deliberations require? Besides, recusal is done when there's a conflict of interest or lack of impartiality. How does knowing the facts of a case mandate recusal? Members of the AAB board know that the airport and the city succeed. For the airport and the city to succeed, the relationship must be beneficial to both parties. That kind of relationship is a form of symbiosis called mutualism, like a clownfish and an anemone. For years, Coyote Aviation's and the city's relationship was mutualistic. Both parties benefited, but the city's new hunger to consume Coyote Aviation is an example of parasitism, and that word comes from the word parasite. As a scientist who specializes in body snatchers, airports, and relationships of organisms, I can tell you that when the parasite takes everything, both organisms eventually die. In the City Council's refusal to examine Coyote Aviation's position, a decision not based on facts may lead to significant consequences. Perhaps the demise at the airport, perhaps the end of all humanity.
Board recognizes Walt Farrar.
My name is Walt Farrar. I live at the airport. I'm a good speaker, so I'll just read. Many citizens feel that their one vote in the election isn't going to make a difference. I feel speaking here to this small audience isn't going to be significant either. Maybe the good people that are in city government will listen. The people of Redlands have been misrepresented by their leaders. It is public opinion that the mayor and now councilman Paul Barrett, along with city manager Chris Boatman, have used the power of their city positions to settle a vendetta with Coyote owner Gil Brown. Their goal from the beginning was to destroy Gil and take his business, the Coyote Hangars. Taking Gil down is not beneficial to the city of Redlands or the airport. There were many win-win options. This current outcome only benefits Barrett and Boatman's personal goals. Even at this late hour, those two could reverse the court decision and do what is fair to both the city and Coyote. You, the members of the AAB, are allowed by city charter to speak on all matters concerning the airport. You've been told you can't speak by the city attorney who got his orders from the same few corrupt city leaders that escalated the Coyote issue to its current level. Those corrupt leaders have abused their city power and used their influence over the rest of the city council to their own personal benefit. The city council and all of you know the dirty deeds that have gone on behind the scenes. The hope is public never finds out the truth about what they have done. You, AAB members, should be ashamed of yourselves if you don't speak out about what you know is right and fair. We all know of dirty people in government. We hear it in the news every day. To think it would be happening in our little city was unthinkable until I saw the controlling game being played by these city leaders. You all volunteered for this position to help the city and the airport. Why, after being told not to speak about something that absolutely affects Redlands Airport, are you even still on this board? Your voice has been muzzled by the very people that asked for your opinion. Thank you.
The board recognizes Michael Paisner. Apologies if I got that last name wrong.
You did. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Michael Paisner. I have to admit, I have not been to any of the previous meetings or court cases on the Coyote Aviation topic, but I thought it might be useful for you to hear what a casual observer has observed. Coyote Aviation tells a very convincing and compelling story that they're a small business owner, they've made a good faith effort to play by the rules, they engaged with the city when there was, faults in the contract. They did everything right. And they still, the city just tried to steal their business. And I don't like to think of my city as a bully, but that's the city's silence. That's the story that's being told. And it's very frustrating. I believe there's two sides to every story, but the city's silence is infuriating. It just makes the city look like a bully, and it's very frustrating, and I don't like to think of my city as that. I don't know what power you guys have. It's very frustrating that no city council representative is here tonight, when clearly this is an ongoing topic and it deserves their attention. So, again, casual observer, Coyote Aviation did everything right, and the city should do better because there's no winners in this. Obviously, Coyote Aviation is losing, and the city is losing because no one's going to want to invest in the city or do business with the city when this is the story that's being told. Thank you.
The board recognizes Luann Benton.
Hi, my name is Luann Benton. I've been an advertising executive for over 30 years, working primarily with small business owners. Small business owners are the heart and soul of America. They are the doers. They have a dream and they make it happen. The people of Redlands love small business owners and support our local businesses. It's a sin to see what's happening to Coyote Aviation. They had worked for 20 years building this business, and now the city of Redlands wants to put them out of business. The city council are our elected officials. They should be honoring their agreements with honesty and integrity. We voted them into office because this is what we expect from them. Is it honorable or even reasonable to raise the monthly rent for Coyote from $1,100 a month to $22,000 a month? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like extortion. What about the legal costs? Instead of honoring their commitments, the city is using taxpayer money to pay for the legal costs. The city council is setting a bad precedent. Other tenants will move out and will not trust the city as good business partners. The city will earn a bad reputation, replacing financial gain and political gain above honesty and integrity. The Browns and the Salivas have spent 20 years of blood, sweat, and tears building their dream, building Coyote Aviation. And bad decisions will destroy that all. Do the right thing, make the right choice, keep your promises, and save Coyote Aviation.
Board recognizes Barry Newmeyer.
Barry Newmeyer, and I was a school teacher for 32 years, resident of Redlands, an investor in Redlands Airport. After retiring, I worked with Chief Beardman, building the aviation program, PD-10. So I have a lot of vested interest in Redlands Airport. I also have a big financial investment in it. I invested in Redlands Aviation and also Coyote Aviation, all my retirement money. So unfortunately, I got a lot at stake here. My airplane partner, Bill Cheeseman, he also invested heavily in Redlands Airport, and he stands to lose a tremendous amount of money. I'm not going to go an exact amount, but it's a lot. And so I'm really sad that what's happening. It should never have happened. And you all heard everything already, so I'm not going to repeat. The investment I made in the Redlands Airport, a lot of other people did too. And it's a sad day right now that what Redlands is trying to do. And hopefully we can turn it around, but only with public exposure. The city doesn't want that to happen. They're trying to hide it. I helped get Cecito, a councilman, elected because he's in my precinct. Barrage is not, so he got unopposed. So he feels very entitled. But Cecito knows exactly what's happening here, and now he's a council member, yet he's not speaking up. He sat down and talked to Gil, and I talked to him for over an hour. He knows exactly what's happening, so he's very complicit. I wish he was here tonight so I could look at him straight in the eye and say, what an evil person you are, okay? But I'm not gonna repeat everything else that's been said, because I was gonna talk about investments and how everything was invested into the airport over the years. I've been at the airport since the late 70s, okay, so I've seen it all. And it's a sad day right now, and I'm sure proud of you guys to stand here, try to stand up for us, because we sure don't have a voice. They refuse to. I couldn't come into a city council meeting and talk about it. They refused it. We're just totally silenced on all of it. And I feel this is the first opportunity. I didn't even have a chance. And I stand to lose that $500,000, okay? It's not easy to just give up that kind of money at my age, okay? But it is what it is. Evil is evil. And we've seen it all the way up to Washington, D.C., so I can't say anymore. Thank you guys for listening to it.
The board recognizes David Banix.
Thank you. I'm reading a letter from fellow Redlander Rebecca Weir. Dear Redlands Airport Advisory Board, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing on behalf of Coyote Aviation, a cherished and integral part of Redlands Airport community. As you know, this local small business has been serving the local community for over 20 years and has become an important cornerstone of the Airport Association. They have worked tirelessly to establish their business, provide safe and reliable flight storage solutions, inspire youth to become aviators of tomorrow, and contribute to the local economy. Over the years, they have formed valuable relationships with their customers, colleagues, and community members, and have given back much more than they have taken. I am deeply concerned by the City of Redlands' approach to what had already turned out to be a profitable deal with Coyote Aviation. Over the past 2.5 years, I have watched the city wage illegal and public relations assault on Coyote Aviation, all in the name of fulfilling its fiduciary duty to residents like me. While elected officials and government servants undoubtedly must carefully monitor the city's financial health, there is no law that requires them to do it on the backs of good and decent community members who support Coyote Aviation, Redlands Airport, and the community at large. The city has the authority to amicably settle this matter in the name of preserving a public good, generating community goodwill, but instead continues to use a legal technicality and the legal process to strong arm the small business into submission and explore more lucrative options. The city's eviction action has taken the community by surprise and left us deeply concerned about Coyote Aviation's future and the city's ability to responsibly govern. While the eviction action may or may not be legally supportable, it is undeniably morally reprehensible. As always, Coyote Aviation is open to engaging in dialogue with the city to address any concerns or issues that may have led to this decision and is committed to complying with reasonable regulations, terms, or conditions necessary to continue their business operations. You, the Airport Advisory Board, are uniquely positioned to bring some calm, common sense, and fairness to this dispute. I kindly urge you to lend your full support and expertise to Coyote Aviation as it fights for what is fair and what is just. With your guidance, I am confident that the city and Coyote Aviation can find common ground and craft a win-win situation for everyone involved. Thank you for taking the time to consider my perspective. I hope to learn of your support and remain hopeful for a positive outcome. Sincerely, Rebecca Weir.
Board recognizes Keith Kaysen.
Good evening, I'm Keith Kaysen, resident of Redlands since about 1985, father of 3, raised them all here in Redlands with my wife. Like it or not, we're all role models. We're all leaders, we're all mentors, we're all influencers. Remember that. We can't opt out of that. Our actions, our words, our deeds, the way we uphold the positions that we've achieved, been elected to, or granted, we have accountability to. People watch us. They learn from us. They take permission from our bad actions, or they grow and they become better citizens, recognizing the good that we do, the moral things that we uphold. The right thing is not always the easy thing. If I were growing up and still in school, I would want a teacher like Gil Brown. There's good teachers, there's great teachers, and there's lifelong educators. Gil is a great teacher and a lifelong educator, never constrained by the walls of a classroom. The world is his classroom. I know at least a dozen students who have gone through his classes. They were all top graduates of the Redlands high schools. They've all gone to elite schools and are now becoming doctors, scientists, and everything else in between. He is an influencer, a positive role model. Like it or not, he is still teaching. He's educating right now. This process is continuing. His students, the council, would think that they're all his friends, lifelong friends that he has recruited to come to his aid. They should take another look. I wish they were here tonight so they could look and hear the stories. They're students, former students, now young adults, having children of their own, looking for guidance on what the process should be here at Civics. The council, elected by the people, for the people, for the greater good of our community, is ignoring, failing to look at the facts. I am proud of each of you for taking the time to be here tonight to listen, to hear, and hopefully see the truth and understand the right thing. One way or another, a lesson, maybe Gil's last big act, a lesson of education, is going to be how the election process, right and wrong, checks and balances, will play out. Does the bully win? Those people elected by us, citizens of Redlands, to do the right thing for us, who have silenced and failed to listen, win? Or do the people win as they make their case for Gill and Coyote Aviation?
3 minutes.
So I am so deeply moved by everyone's comments here. This is exactly what a community is. It's people who stand up for what is right. And everyone's right about Gil. He is a pillar of this community. He has educated generations in Redlands. He's inspired young people to have an interest in aviation. I had the same thing when I was growing up. I had a teacher in school who got me interested in aviation, and I do it for a living. And the fact that the city is taking this course of action is deeply troubling. And it's going to be a domino effect. This isn't only going to be with Coyote Aviation, it's happening to AYSO and the soccer fields, it's going to happen with the Little League and the baseball fields. Everyone who does business with the city and has any kind of contracts are going to be at stake. And members of the community were right. We're going to be blacklisted at the airport for any kind of growth now. Any developer on the airport who wants to invest is going to say, hell no. We saw what they did to Coyote Aviation. Why would we put money into the airport? That's going to be hangars, it's going to be fuel concessions, it's going to be possibly an airport restaurant. Why would they put in the hard work and money to come to Redlands if the city's going to do this? And you know, Walt said it perfectly. He said, we're not doing our job. We should have been more vocal about this. I accept fault that we sat on our hands far too long about this. Some of the newer members, I get it, you guys weren't here yet, but I've been on this board for almost 2 years now, and I shouldn't have listened to city councilors who told me don't talk about Coyote Aviation. It was the wrong thing for them to say, and I should never have listened to it. And our words absolutely mean things. I think the city is trying to opportunistically take these hangars, and I know that because I've seen the emails between Chris Boatman and the city of Coyote. I also need you to send me your estimate of how much revenue that we can realistically generate per year with the Coyote hangars. This was before the city council ever voted to end Coyote's lease. So from the get-go, they wanted those hangars, and it's not right.
Yeah.
So I know it legally doesn't mean anything for me to say these things, but it's a personal victory. If anything, it'll help me sleep at night. I think the city should engage in meaningful discussion with Coyote Aviation to end this. I do think Coyote did everything they were supposed to do. They were negotiating with the then airport manager, who was authorized to negotiate leases. I have a tie down at the airport. I negotiated that tie down with the current airport manager. So why couldn't the then airport manager negotiate leases with Coyote Aviation? I also disagree with city staff that because this is in litigation, we're not allowed to talk about it. I think the community has never had a chance to talk about this. Coyote Aviation has also tried to bring this up with City Council, and they've never given him a platform to talk about it. He has over 30 documented efforts to negotiate with the City Council, and none of them ever took him up on it. It's shady. I think this just makes the city look bad, and I'm deeply disappointed in our city leaders. And at our last meeting, Mayor Pro Tem Barrett said, "If you don't like what I'm doing, vote me out." And I think you guys should. Absolutely.
This started with the crack hangers, which caused a lot of anger, a lot of hate. And I don't think there's a lot of recovery since then. We also have a gentleman sitting in the audience that was on this advisory board, and they got so perturbed over the city council that the whole board quit. I think most of you know who he is. There's been some statements made on this board about resigning, and others have said, no, don't do it. But it gets kind of discouraging when the city doesn't do its due diligence in regards to keeping people happy. Enough said.
You all know I serve the people in the city as well as the people at the airport, but one of the reasons I came on the board is I wanted to bring the rest of the city to the airport. And I think that we're making strides. I think Cindy is definitely one of the people that have brought many people that never stepped foot on that airport to the airport. And I think those are wonderful things. It's an asset for the city. I am concerned as a citizen of the city, what's happening. As the Airport Advisory Board, I think I don't think I advised on this because we were told we weren't allowed. But if I were to advise, I would definitely ask if there's any way we can come to a mutual win-win. Because right now, it doesn't look like that. For the city to win, the city loses community respect. Is that a win? And it definitely is a loss for everyone at the airport. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done because they have a legal stand to move forward in a direction that the people that live in the city aren't very fond of. I don't know what we can or cannot do other than be clear that as a citizen of this community, it doesn't look good on any of us. That's it.
Any other member comments? Just to wrap it up, I can't make a motion because we all got letters here. We got threats from the city attorney saying if we talk about Coyote Aviation, we are subject to civil and criminal
What? Wow.
Brown Act violation action.
Wow.
But if I could make a motion, and I understand it's not official, so you guys don't have to panic, but the motion would have read like this: recognizing the adverse effects on Redlands Airport because of the city of Redlands and the Coyote Aviation lease dispute, I move that the preceding conclusions and recommendations be entered into the record and given to the Redlands City Council for thoughtful consideration. Those conclusions are: the city's unprincipled actions to acquire Coyote Aviation's property because of what was a contract mistake made by the city itself will doom prospective private development at the airport. The city's effort to thwart communication, internal discussion, and engagement with Coyote Aviation contributed significantly to the initiation and protracted continuance of the land lease dispute. The city's actions with Coyote Aviation have run contrary to the ideals of bargaining in good faith. And aware now that Coyote did not receive its negotiated 20-year first term, nor its lease extension, City Council has knowingly reneged on the promises of the City Council of 2000, vows that encouraged Coyote Aviation to originally invest in the airport. So unless there are any other board comments, I move that we adjourn.